Alright, I'm going to show you how I made a digital picture frame out of an old laptop computer. I started with a uh, fairly deep frame that I got at the local craft store. It's actually what they call a shadow box, so it's a couple inches thick, which is going to be useful. I got a piece of anti-glare glass instead of the standard glass that was in there, and that'll just make the pictures a little bit easier to see. I also got some matting cut for it so that the inside rectangle was the same as the size of the screen itself, so you want to measure that carefully. It's probably a good idea to have the opening be just a little bit narrower than the width of the screen so that you don't see any parts of the screen on the sides that might not really look that nice. I also attached some foam core board to the back of the matting. It's maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. I did that because I had some screws heads that popped out through the front, and I don't want those to be digging into the mat or to be putting undue pressure on the frame. Okay, I put the matting and foam core board in the frame as you would expect, with the matting side out. Next I'm going to show you the screen and computer mounting. I can't really explain to you exactly how you're going to have to take apart your old laptop screen. What you want to do, of course, is disconnect the screen part from the base of the laptop, and each laptop's going to be different, but you got to be really careful with those little ribbon cables because those things are obviously really delicate. So just very carefully unwind them, and I had to separate mine completely so that I could mount the LCD screen. I just cut a piece of particle board and screwed it onto there, and those are the screws that are going to sit inside those holes in the foam core board. Went to the local home repair place, our Home Depot, and I got some mirror clips, and that's what I'm using to hold the LCD onto the particle board. Again, I removed off the bezel, the plastic backing, and everything from the LCD monitor, and was just very careful to keep the components clean and not damaged. Then the other part is what the computer's mounted on. I cut some slots. Sorry that it's not as pretty as it could be, but it's just to give some heat, ventilation, so that the computer wouldn't overheat. I cut some holes, and you'll see why I did those in a second. Obviously I have zip ties going through those, and you can see I made some square blocks for the corners, and that's so that when this sits down there's ample room between the two pieces of board so there isn't any undue pressure sitting on the back of the LCD panel. Those things are delicate and you don't want to damage them. So then on the top I had carefully laid out where the computer would go. I cut the board so that it would fit just inside the shadow box, and then laid this out ahead of time. It's a pretty good idea to lay it out and figure out where everything's going to sit first. And then I drilled some holes and ran some zip ties to hold all the pieces in place. I got the power supply that I wanted to be mounted in the inside the case, so that there was just a cord coming out the back. There's the Wi-Fi card. You're going to need one of those, and just a PCMCIA Wi-Fi card. There's where the ribbon cable came out of the back of the laptop, and I cut a slot so that it could easily reach to where it needed to mount onto the LCD screen. Again, yours is going to be different than this one probably, so you're going to have to figure out the best way to anchor the laptop down to the board so that it holds it firmly. This ugly thing on the corner is what used to be the backing from the shadow box. My setup here actually ended up being even thicker than the shadow box would handle, so I wasn't able to just sit the backing on top of the computer, so that's why I have this fabric, and you'll see how that plays out in a second. But this is going to hold it inside into the ridges that are already pre-cut in the shadow box, and so I just cut off the corners of the backing and mounted that to the particle board, and that also then the screws go through like a little sandwich, the particle board that holds the computer, the corner wood pieces, and the corners from the back of the shadow box. Okay, it's a really good idea to test out everything before you put everything together, because once you package it all up, if yours is going to be like mine, you have to put fabric over it so you don't see the computer on the back of the finished product. You don't want to have to type through the fabric, because I can tell you from experience that's no fun. It is good if you can have exposed the ports where a keyboard could be plugged in, so that later on you could do some maintenance if you needed to, and you'll be well suited at having a USB port there. If you can find an old laptop with a USB, that will help you out so that you can attach a wireless mouse or something like that, so you can do the maintenance on it without having to again reach through and activate the touchpad from upside down and through a piece of fabric. Again, carefully route all your wiring. Make sure nothing's going to bind up. You don't want to cause any electrical damage. I took out the battery on this because I figured it'd be plugged in the whole time, but you do what you think is best. Again, test it all carefully, and then I'm going to set this into the frame and then put the backing onto it. Okay, now everything is set inside of the shadow box. You may have noticed these earlier. It's just some ribbon that is kind of sandwiched in with that corner piece. It's attached to the part that that the computer's mounted on, and this is going to be the part that holds the frame upright later on. But the ribbons also make it so that it's easier to lift up the computer board if I need to do that. And then I'm going to put the backing, just some black fabric I got at a fabric store, and wrap the corners in and use just some thumbtacks to affix it to those corner pieces. If yours doesn't seem to work out that way, you can find some other way to do it, or you might be lucky and everything will fit inside. So I'm going to tack that up, and then we'll take a look at the front. Okay, so you want to make sure that you fix these little levers into the grooves that are in the shadow box so that everything stays put. And then I'm going to finish fixing this fabric using the tacks there. Now everything's kind of sealed up here. It's not beautiful, but there aren't that many people that are going to be looking at the back of the frame. You just want it to hide some of the ugly computer parts. Got the cord coming out the back, and now I'm going to reaffix these wood parts to the top using these hinges again that I just got at Home Depot. And if you would like yours to be done in a different way that you think would work better, of course, go ahead. But this is the only thing I came up with. This might have been better off fixed with some kind of Velcro, so it would have been easier to take it off and put it back if I needed to do maintenance, but this seemed to work out okay. Okay, so here are the pieces finished with the backing on them. Again, it's not beautiful, but it just needs to be enough that I can hold the picture frame up in the back when extended out. And there it is. And for expense, there wasn't a ton here. You got the old laptop computer I found off Craigslist for 50 bucks. The shadow box cost about 20 bucks at a hobby store. The matting and glass is maybe another $10–15, and various hardware pieces, particle board, so you can add it up, but you're maybe looking at $100. Oh, the wireless card, so another 20 bucks. It's not a terrible expense there. Obviously you'd want to set up the hardware part before you got to the part of doing the construction here, so I'm going to show you how to do the software part on my. Okay, I just powered up the computer, and it's going to take a minute or two for that to power up and go through its normal cycles. You want to set up the computer so that it does some kind of automatic login. You can make those settings in Windows so that if you only have one user, it should be able to automatically log in, and if you don't set a password, then you don't have to worry about that either. So we're going to let that do its thing.